The first thought is that, a short made the opinion, having hated members as a fan. If you're gonna stan a group you have to love every member, but that is a complete lie unless you're hating members unnecessarily, then no, you can have hated members. It's a lie because if an idol does wrong, per se Jiaoying from Twice wearing a shirt with a Nazi symbol on it for example, when people saw her do that, they were upset and there definitely must have been people who couldn't see her the same after that incident and so they dislike her now which probably led them to unstan Twice. This is just an example, but it definitely could be the case for some onces or people getting into the group. Also it did lead me to boycott them because of that incident and I will not support their new comeback as a group but rather support the individual solos besides Jiaoying for that release. The solos sound bad except for my bias Chongyun, but we'll see when they release to fully judge. People seeing Jiaoying doing that must have left a bad taste in their mouth which obviously would lead them to unstan and or boycott Twice, because even with ignoring her and still standing Twice, she's still there, and in songs she'll still be there too. So, the only logical thing is to unstan and boycott if you feel like you cannot support them even more even if you love them, but supporting them as soloists, or subunits like Missima where Jiaoying isn't even there. To me, you're not obligated to love every member if you have a valid reason to be hating that one member especially if the member is problematic, then it's fine because then your hatred towards a member is not built on just hating them for the sake of hating them because you're bitter. People should remember that we don't know these K-pop idols, as many K-pop channels have said a lot, so why should we love every member who are a group of people we don't even know personally? We stan the group because we find them funny, the music hits, the group is likable and also talented, but we should also remember that the idols' selves on camera are fake personalities. They're not being themselves and we won't know they're being themselves or not if they're in a group and made to follow rules by a company being in that group. So, if we're gonna stan a group and have to love every member, what exactly are we supposed to love? Tell me. The members are not even being true to themselves as people, so are we supposed to love a fake person? As a K-pop stan, I do appreciate idols and I do love every member of a group since I have no reason to hate on them randomly. But I also know that idols aren't real people in the sense of showing us them. Maybe Nugu idols are more themselves since they're not so popular. That's why I feel more sad towards Nugu groups disbanding that I get attached to, but I feel like popular idols are less themselves since they're popular and in the spotlight and being themselves wouldn't be as good if you see how K-pop stans act. It's scary in the K-pop stan space with the toxic fans. K-pop stans say idols are human and make mistakes, but do they treat them as such if these idols are putting on fake personas to please fans and fans eat that up? The next thought is that, let me add on to the first point to a second thought that I don't know if it's 100% true, but I believe it is, that Nugu idols are probably more themselves and real to their real-world personalities than popular idols. Why do I believe so? It's because for popular idols, they're popular and so they have to act a certain way to keep their popularity afloat which would mean a fake personality. They're in the spotlight and they're popular that anyone who is a K-pop stan knows them, and so of course they act a certain way because of company rules they have to follow. Toxic fans, do you see how brutal K-pop stans are when they find out an idol is dating another idol? Being hated on if they mess up and even possibly being dropped from their label due to that. They have to keep their image and so they have to play a character as if they're acting on a TV show or movie. They make themselves feel relatable to K-pop stans, have to be happy all the time and make their idol lives look good on camera so their image looks good to K-pop stans, which is probably why some K-pop stans want to be K-pop idols because they look at all this and think the idol life is great, but in actuality it's so bad. Nugu idols on the other hand have smaller fandoms which means they don't have to worry about public image much since lots of K-pop stans don't know they exist unless the K-pop stan is also a Nugu stan. Nugu idols to me feel more real because maybe being real will help them get more fans possibly. They can be themselves because they won't get hated on randomly, like Wonyoung, who ate a strawberry cutely. Nugu idols feel less like characters because take the example of popular celebrities, any industry, any country, if they get caught doing something bad like being a racist, many people hate and cancel them, but do you think people do the same for non-famous people who also do something like racism? No, because unless the situation goes viral somehow, the person themselves aren't popular and so they might have chances of getting away with it. So, for Nugu idols, they're not in the spotlight and they go under the radar of most K-pop stans until their disbandment, and K-pop stans don't even know they once existed so they have more freedom to be who they wanna be since it won't cause backlash. That's how I see it. The next thought is that, another thing I found disinterest in unpopular K-pop opinions videos is about how some channels upload K-pop opinions videos but all their opinions are just sharing thoughts on the most trending topics happening. Like for example opinion 1 being if Group A comes under fire for doing wrong. Opinion 2 being one of the members of Group B was harassed by fans, and Opinion 3 being a member of Group C showing support to a great cause, and while I'm fine with people sharing thoughts on these topics, I don't want these to take up the whole video, because to me, I like when K-pop channels share opinions and add these thoughts alongside other thoughts, like talking about the music, the K-pop stan community and other things. I like when people share opinions on K-pop as a whole instead of giving us a commentary-styled My Thoughts breaking news channel update on what's happening in K-pop for people who may have missed what had happened or are not in certain K-pop spaces or on certain social media apps to see these things. I like when people provide some insightful thoughts on K-pop, which I know many channels don't do that and I've said it so much, but I prefer the, I noticed this in K-pop, opinions rather than the, here's a rundown of every K-pop group and what happened with them. If I wanted to know about what's happening with Korean artists, I would try to find it on some news website because it's so popular that many people talk about it anyways. And as I said in the previous upload, where I shared K-pop thoughts on unpopular K-pop opinions, people sharing their thoughts on this, they're probably not saying anything new about it anyways and share the same thoughts as others having the similar or same reaction instead of trying to bring a new perspective. Like if an idol is under fire, everyone is disgusted by it and will share their reaction, nothing is different. There's also people who make these opinions videos to talk about these popular trending topics fresh without any full information out. If it's about an idol who is in a per se bullying scandal, and so these channels have biasness, lack of information, and also lack of thought because the scandal is fresh and there's nothing to share thoughts on yet, and these channels probably do it to be first before everyone else, when being first doesn't mean your thoughts will bring up a discussion if you end up saying something others will say too, and you just do it because you wanna play the, but I said it first, card. Again, I'm not saying don't share thoughts on trending topics, I'm just saying to share thoughts on it, but add other opinions as well on other things. If it's solely based on being a rundown on what happened with K-pop group or idol, then title your video as, My Opinions on the Latest K-pop Trending News, instead of just titling it as, My Unpopular K-pop Opinions, because you're actually not sharing K-pop opinions if the K-pop opinions you share are just you talking about popular news topics and not opinions you've thought off because your brain clicked. The next thought is that, if I agree with an opinion shared on unpopular K-pop opinions videos, shorts it's not because the take is any good, because the overusage of the take has taken away the, oh, this is something that could be said, power of the take. I agree because I see the take and then my brain clicks and I think about it more deeply and deep dive into the different perspectives of this take that I see nobody talk about and it makes me agree. My agreement is because I picked apart the opinion and saw what was hiding underneath, and not because I'm a stan with surface-level thinking, or I blindly support things, or herd mentality, none of that. There are very rare instances where I agree with takes said because it opened my eyes to something I've never seen before, and most of the times I agree simply because I saw more in that take than what you as a K-pop stan delivered with that take since your delivery was more for the views to get people to agree with you on the same level that you agree and not because you're actually saying something deep. It's like when someone sent in the opinion about over-edited vocals in a song where I was reacting to unpopular K-pop opinions. I agreed with them, but my agreement was far more in-depth leaning towards how the vocal editing is so much and that it's mostly meant to enhance a song and not change it, and paired with groups lip-syncing we don't get to hear the idol's raw vocals. Also touching on lack of talent or untrained talent or they cannot hit the song's notes because they sing softer songs better. My agreement nowadays is purely because I want to see the opinion more than what people see it. I want to go levels deep on the iceberg than stop at the top of the iceberg. The next thought is that, I saw an opinion on a short that said, I think we should agree the fact that companies will debut more minors whether we like it or not, and yes, I agree and this is true though. It's true for everything. People not liking something in K-pop will not make it go away or lessen unless we do something about it. If people hate minors debuting they can hype up adults that exist because like if we want something to change, we have to change it ourselves instead of sitting idly by complaining all the time, minors debut too much, but then we at the same time forget about the adults existing in the industry and a big portion amongst nugu unknown groups. Plus, even if it may not end minors debuting, because minors debuting has been an issue even before people started complaining about minors debuting more, trying to do something can help slowly bring positive change, right? And positive change in a way that even if minors will still debut, we can live amongst the minors debuting by focusing on companies debuting all adults. Things like these happening are bad, but instead of ending it completely because it is something that can never end fully, we should work our way around it and live with it because it will never go away, lessen, but never go away fully. Nothing ever fully dies in K-pop because one group, company, artist etc. will always be doing it, showing that this thing exists even if it becomes a minor thing in K-pop. The next thought is that, in my last video on K-pop thoughts I talked about why do K-pop groups need a room for improvement after debut when improvement shouldn't have been needed at all, because if they're still improving after debut, they have not been trained fully and therefore are not ready. I wanted to add more to this and say that if idols are still improving after debut, for example in vocals, basic vocals, and not in vocals to fit a different sound or concept, then that shows us that mainstream K-pop companies nowadays who have the financial means to train idols properly don't if the idols sound bad after debut, which shows us that these mainstream companies don't care because K-pop stans will eat anything and still support their faves no matter what, and also paired with there being mainstream groups who lip-sync live, it might be even more of a reason for companies to not care about vocals. I mean, yes, companies do debut talented vocals, but it's not everyone they debut. I do definitely feel like companies don't care much nowadays because they think no matter what they do, K-pop stans will always support them, and the ones who call out companies for different things validly are smaller than the supporters who support regardless and don't care about anything other than giving their time and energy to people who don't know them. Also, not sure if this is the case, but it could be true with what I've mentioned. The next thought is that, this is no hate to Dear Yoongi, but I wanted to say something. Dear Yoongi made a video about All Day Project, the new co-ed group under the Black label, and in the title called them the first co-ed group in the 5th generation. I know it's just a title, but I don't like when people call someone the first X group, or the first X idol, in reference to something unless they're the first to do something that starts a trend in K-pop or that is a milestone for the group. Other than that, no group can be the first in anything. The reason is that, people mostly know the popular, mainstream side of K-pop, with some knowing the better budgeted Nugu, unpopular artists, and it leads people to think the group they talk about is the first in something when they're not, since the mainstream side of K-pop make up only a small part of the industry, and these lesser-known, Nugu groups with a better budget do fall under the category of unknown groups that many people don't know exist, but they're not the only ones. Most K-pop stans mostly know the mainstream side of the industry, with some knowing the some Nugu, unpopular artists. And then they call a group the first at something because of this, because these bigger budgeted labels don't do these things often for it to be a thing. And since K-pop stans forget the Nugu side of K-pop and forget the even more lesser-known Nugu artists than the ones some K-pop stans know about that exist who do it more, and think when a bigger budgeted label does it once, they're the first to do it or the first to do it in a gen, but it's just that other labels have done it already and get forgotten. Dear Yoongi said this about All Day Project, calling them the first co-ed group in the 5th gen, and since people believe 2023 started the 5th gen, here are some groups that are co-ed debuting before All Day Project. Toth 6Y debuted in 2024, Sikoo debuted in 2025, Blank debuted in 2023, Jspy debuted in 2024, Smoothie debuted in 2023, Dorn 3.3 debuted in 2023, Fairies debuted in 2023, Kanzu Crew debuted in 2024, 4Beat debuted in 2024, A6 debuted in 2024, Yeokjuhang debuted in 2024, Yoast debuted in 2023, and others who I can't remember. K-pop stans, quite a bit of them, don't check out companies and artists other than mainstream popular labels. And when they do check out lesser-known, Nugu artists, they check out bigger budgeted labels with decent MV views, which isn't a bad thing, but it becomes bad when K-pop stans see only these groups and then label a new group as first in something simply because they saw mostly bigger budgeted groups and thought, this group is the first, because they may have not seen it with other bigger budgeted labels. This also leads to Nugus never getting any credit if they end up being the first in something, because K-pop stans never actively seek them out if they're not from a bigger label enough to get noticed by fans, and it's sad. The next thought is that, I saw an opinion on a short that said, if BTS were a less known group, y'all would have eaten up their rap, vocals and dance, but just BC they're the biggest group RN, y'all discredit their skills and talents in every possible way. The problem with this opinion is the fact that this person said, if BTS were a less known group, y'all would have eaten up their rap, vocals and dance, because if BTS were a lesser known group, nobody would have eaten up their skills unless they had a budget. Many K-pop stans mostly know the mainstream popular and big budgeted side of K-pop, and the lesser known groups who some K-pop stans do check out are ones with also a good budget to make comebacks each time, have good MVs and other such things. The thing about this opinion that is wrong is that K-pop stans don't understand that being lesser known doesn't mean people will appreciate you more because you're not popular, following trends, and you don't get called overrated and such things. People need to understand that people won't notice you if you have good talent unless you have a good budget to back you up to show others that your talent exists. You cannot get popular based on talents alone because there are so many groups debuting each year and so many soloists, and even bands too, and you can imagine how much talent debuts who don't get recognized are ones who have the potential to be really good talent-wise but are held back by companies who can't afford them good training. I know some talented idols who are good or show potential. My favorite example is Medic Jin from Girl Kind, who has such a nice voice and she sings really well. Looking at cases where she's shown vocals, and Girl Kind did get some little noticeability, not from her vocals, but overall as a group, but it didn't help her at all for people to recognize her talent, and Girl Kind remained extremely nugu till they disbanded. Also, even though these groups with a good budget, examples being groups like 9 or I-FI, are not popular fully, they still have better chances of getting noticed for their talent and skills over someone like ICU, for example, who debuted in 2019 coming from a really small company, or B-Boys who just debuted recently. These groups are just examples. IDK their talents properly, and these groups are more likely to get noticed as the cheapest K-pop groups, or maybe having no fans or something that is negative, rather than something good like skills and talent. You guys need to understand that finances always come first in terms of recognition. It's not the talent, because you can be talented but go unrecognized because your group is not money-wise good enough to get you into K-pop stans' view, where they only notice groups with a budget, and only the rare few K-pop stans actually are checking smaller artists with no budget or a decent budget but are not on the same level as other company groups who are more in the K-pop stans' view. The next thought is that, it's always to do with the companies that even if they scout good idols, the concept just may not show the idol's potential off. Like if you look at companies who debut boy groups and then all of a sudden give them some dark edgy concept when before they were doing bright sounds. I've talked about before how concept switches can make a group member feel awkward if they don't fit it, and it's the same here, because the idol they scouted is talented and has what it takes to be a good idol, you as a company just put them in the wrong concept and sound etc., that it doesn't work for them, and so their idol potential doesn't get shown off because they're suited towards one specific concept sound. It's not just about scouting talented people, if you as a company see that as a top priority, but it's also seeing if that specific idol fits in the group you're gonna debut and the concept they're gonna debut with and focus on. If the idol doesn't work well with that sound, then don't debut said idol and find someone else who does, and with this idol, train them more and debut them in a future group that does work for them. That can be one thing, or another thing can be compromising to see what every member can do in terms of the concept and focus on that for them mostly. Companies need to realize that. Take for example Waterfire, they're a 4-member boy group with members who didn't make it into the final lineup of the build-up survival show group BDU, and they debuted with a ballad-like song called Possible. One of the members, Wumuti, later debuted in X Love, where he is currently because Waterfire disbanded after debut. I feel like despite Waterfire having all 4 members who can sing well and possible being vocally a nice listen, Wumuti would have more chances to shine in X Love because K-pop stans are not really ballad listeners unless they prefer these types of songs, and plus to stand out in a ballad it's not just about having good vocals, but also uplifting the song with the emotions or bringing a pleasant vibe to the ballad even if you cannot provide the emotions. Ballads, especially K-pop ones, can be seen as boring to K-pop stans because K-pop groups might not be able to do ballads justice. I like these types of songs, so Possible is not forgettable to me, but realistically apart from nice vocals the song has nothing that sets it apart from being just another ballad. Xlove's music has some standout moments with their debut song and comebacks.
Silly, silly, yeah, baby, here I come and get it. 예고편일 뿐이야, just sit and down and watch it. I'ma be only, I'm tryna be your one and only. Call me, so call me whenever you're feeling lonely.
IDK their B-sides yet, but K-pop stans focus a lot on titles. And their debut song I'ma Be and their comeback song One and Only are both different vibes and such, and Wumuti has more chances of getting noticed in X Love because they did 2 songs that sounded different. So having different sounds, if X Love do that, Wumuti might showcase his potential as opposed to Waterfire, because if Waterfire stayed and continued doing ballad-like or similar music, I'm just making an assumption here since Waterfire didn't last after debut to know what their sound really is, it'll all be some versions of the same sound leading Wumuti to not really show off his potential other than vocal showcase. Ballads don't fully showcase what an idol can do, and being a K-pop group only doing ballad music when the genre is dance pop-like isn't good because how do we know what the idol can really do other than vocals? This is why I say that companies picking good idols are there, but what makes them a good idol may not get showcased because they do an unfitting concept sound to what they can really showcase, and it can hold them back if that concept or sound is restrictive to what they're capable of, or if that concept sound doesn't allow them to showcase what they're capable of, like for example dance when the concept or sound they do are ballads having no dance. The next thought is that, a friend of mine on Discord said, it's 2025 and seeing people denying big company privileges is so funny, and I completely agree, because company privilege does exist. Groups debuting under certain labels, HYBE, SM, YG, JYP, or under certain big labels with big budgets like Starship have more opportunities for success and the ability to keep their success lasting because of the companies putting efforts into the group. Smaller labels with lack of budget to promote the group more, make comebacks often and other such things are rare. Also, some of the most known groups right now in K-pop are either big 3 company plus HYBE groups or under a big labels. Groups like ENHYPEN, TXT, ILLIT, New Jeans etc., all come from HYBE and HYBE sub-labels. Groups like Baby Monster and Miyove come from YG and the sub-label. Groups like NMIXX, Stray Kids, Pxssy come from JYP. Groups like IVE, Key come from Starship, for some examples, and these groups come from labels who have pushed them to be known to the public. You cannot deny company privilege when most of the groups you know and stan in K-pop are popular or known groups coming from bigger labels. If I were to name you groups like WeNa, Pattern and AWIN, which are 3 Nugu groups out of others promoting amongst these known groups that I mentioned above, would you say you know them? No, because unless you're a Nugu fan who has found these groups randomly or are following certain YouTube channels, social media pages etc., where you'll get updates on new groups or learn about groups you've never seen before, you'll never find them unless you search them up, unlike bigger known groups who'll pop up in any type of K-pop video, article, post etc. Because they're more likely to be shown since they're more known. Company privilege exists with these groups because if people are talking about them the most, doesn't that mean them debuting under these huge or bigger labels helped them for fans to constantly bring them up more because they're the ones you see more in K-pop since fans are eating everything that they do trying to keep them popular or make them more popular than they are. You guys should stop denying company privilege exists since you need a bigger budget to actually get noticed in K-pop because you'll need to promote yourself a lot for others to know you exist. Yes, there are chances that you can go viral for certain reasons, but virality is short-lived if you cannot upkeep that virality due to being under a company who had the budget to do something then, that helped you go viral, but doesn't have the budget now to upkeep that virality because they're not big budgeted labels that can continue to promote like a big label. Getting popular, viral success is one thing, but being able to keep that popularity, virality is another. You guys are delusional if y'all don't believe in company privilege. The last thought is that, I feel like K-pop channels not using their own thinking for takes and just saying what others already have said and also having the same thoughts on that opinion too. I feel like K-pop channels use overused opinions not only for views, but also for people to agree with them so these people can give them views by watching and subbing. If people did use their own thinking and gave new thoughts, I don't know if people would understand what they're saying because these thoughts are brand new away from the same recycled takes. These new takes would just go over people's heads because they're probably used to seeing the same top of the iceberg takes that mostly are just shorts saying the take in one sentence or an opinions video giving a vague response to the opinion. These top of the iceberg takes and responses are not dug deep into, and so people don't have to think too much with the opinion, and so they can just say, I agree with everything, and sub because they think the channel is saying true things, but not too much that they cannot comprehend what is being said. These top of the iceberg take responses that are shared are dumbed down versions of what these takes could actually be, and so since these takes are nothing thought-provoking at all, it's easy on the viewers who do not have to elaborate why they agree because they probably think to the same level as the K-pop channel.